Hello, everyone, and welcome to New York Empoleon's Week 10 Team Builder of the PBAL. This week, we are taking on the Austin Weavile, coached by Nibs Plays Games. And if you want to go check him out, link is in the description below, as is the link of all of the coaches. And hopefully, you guys are excited because this is the last week of the regular season. It has been a long time coming, but we have a chance, a very rare chance in this community. The first that I've ever had to go undefeated for an entire regular season. I have certainly never done it. I have never made it to the final week. No matter how short the season may have been, this is the first time ever in which I have managed to get all the way to the last week of the regular season with a shot that this could happen. And of course, big shout out to everybody who has helped me build in my front office and around the community, who has mocked with me, who has prepped with me. I mean, obviously, I don't do this alone. This is a group effort, and I really appreciate the time and commitment put in by other people to really make this possible. And I couldn't do it without y'all. But the season's not over. One, we've still got this battle to do, and two, we have qualified for playoffs. Now, normally in a battle like this, I might bring some fun mons, see what happens, but actually, there's still something to play for, because despite us being 9-0 right now, there is a team with a better differential at 8-1. So win and we're the 1 seed. That's it, that we lock it up. Lose and we actually could still fall to the 2 seed. So while we made playoffs and whether we are one of the top 2 seeds, if I want to play the team ranked 8th instead of the team ranked 7th, then I got to win this game and keep that as my decision as whether or not I play them, because otherwise it comes down to whether or not the 8-1 team loses, and I don't like leaving my fate in somebody else's hands, as you guys might have figured out by the fact that I try to win every game no matter what. So, hopefully, we are able to pick up a 10th win in 10 tries this season, walk into playoffs undefeated. If we don't, we'll be looking at the other team, which is the New Jersey Bro Batch, coached by Root. Go check him out. Clearly a very talented battler. We actually did not face this regular season. But go check him out, because there's a very good chance he may be the 1 seed if I do lose this match. So we gotta go make sure you watch that battle if you do see me lose tomorrow, to see whether or not I can take on the 8 seed or whether I will be forced to take on the 7 seed. There's also a chance if I lose that this opponent right here, my opponent this week, Nibs, will actually make playoffs as the 8 or 7 seed, and I might end up playing him again in the first week of playoffs. So a lot on the table right now to play for here, for both of us. Anyway, I have stalled for so long that the screen went dark. So here we go. Let's talk about the team that we're actually bringing. I'm just super nervous. His team is a Selgor, Azelf, Tentacruel, Landorus T, Rotom Heat, Grimmsnarl, Porygon 2, Trevenant, Aggron, and Druddigon. And the first thing I noticed right off the bat was that water, ground, and ice coverage hits his entire team neutrally, if not better, and that was super great. The problem with that was that the only mon that gets water, ground, and ice coverage, and in its entirety, is Swampert. So I decided, I obviously have to bring an offensive Swampert, so it's going to be Life Orb this week. We're rocking out with the Flip Turn and minus attack nature, no attack investment, because I'm using it for momentum. I'm not using it for offensive pressure. And otherwise, Scald with a Life Orb is potentially 2KOing Grimmsnarl, especially if it gets the burn, threatens things like the Trevenant on switch in with the burn, and if he does go into the Porygon 2, we just go with the Flip Turn. We don't have to worry about the Porygon 2, can't be Thunder Waved, really solid. So, super nice. Special set is generally better in my opinion than the physical set would have been, since more of his mons are physically defensive. Things like the Aggron would be able to live in EQ. Additionally, I will be bringing the Rillaboom, as you'll see, so the EQ wouldn't have been necessarily an option. I would have had to go with high horsepower, which has a chance to miss, and still wouldn't kill the Aggron. So I decided the special set hits more of his mons like Aggron, Druddigon, Intimidate, Landorus T harder than the physical set would. So I decided to go with the special set this week with the Swampert, and hopefully this goes well for it. Speaking of the Rillaboom, that is the next mon we're going to be talking about. We're going to go with U-Turn, Grassy Glide, Knockoff, and the Leech Seed. And this is a little bit more of a supportive set, despite what it looks like. Muscle Band, obviously, to give me just a little bit of extra oomph with all my moves. Debatable whether or not I should maybe even got Miracle Seed just to really power up Grassy Glide. But his grass type is Trevenant. Trevenant does not want to take a knockoff. It would lose whatever item it is, whether it is Choice Banded whether it is Room Service. I don't know exactly what item it's going to be. Obviously, Culberberry is a possibility, but getting rid of the item is super nice for this thing. And even Culberberry might be 2-hit KO'd by knockoff into a second knockoff. And the obvious switch into this thing is the Rotom Heat, which is why I'm rocking out with the U-turn. I have enough speed to outspeed uninvested Rotom Heat as well as uninvested Tentacruel, as well as all Grimmsnarl and Porygon 2. You'll see this amount of speed to be pretty common for me. I hit 124, which conveniently outspeeds 12-speed Tentacruel as well as Grimmsnarl and Porygon 2, guaranteed. Not that I expect him to run super fast on those, but I figured I'd just go for the safe option of outspeeding them in their entirety. And knockoff spam is so real against his roster. Additionally, the grassy terrain that this thing provides is super nice. A lot of his mons are off the ground. Things like the Rotom Heat, the Landorus T, and the Azelf, none of them get the grassy terrain boost, whereas this thing also is possibly my own switch in to the Trevenant at all. And so I really thought about Grassy Seed. Again, there's a lot of possible sets this could have been. Grassy Seed would prevent the Poltergeist from the Trevenant altogether and give me +1 defense, but it only works once, and I figured the Muscle Band over time is going to be more valuable to me than the evasion of the move Poltergeist, though there's a debate whether or not that's actually going to be true. Next up is my Dragapult this week, coming out with the sub Dragon Dance Dragon Dart Steel Wing set. I personally think the Infiltrator set is better, but the problem is the Infiltrator set gives Trace Porygon 2 Infiltrator and goes right through a sub with an Ice Beam and kills me, which is not ideal. Now, I am a minus special defense, or minus special attack nature, and I'm trying to mount enough. I actually may have mis-EV'd this, but it is what it is. I was going to try to run enough to make sure that it guaranteed to get the physical attack boost on the Porygon 2 with everything. And I will double check my EVs after this, and I'll tell you anything that changed before the battle itself. But this thing is going to be sub D-Dance, and with leftovers, it just eventually wins. The only mons that resist Dragon are the Grimmsnarl and the Aggron, and Steel Wing can hit both of those neutrally or super effectively in Grimmsnarl's case, which is super nice. Additionally, being behind a substitute is great, and this thing is even further facilitated by the Nihiligo with Toxic Spikes, giving it the ability to sub and get leftovers recovery and have something get worn down like the Porygon 2. This is possibly the second time in my entire Pokemon career in which one layer of Toxic Spikes is actually arguably better than 2 layers, and so just the 12% damage a turn is super useful for the first... if you don't know, T-Spikes, 2 layers of Toxic is actually only better than regular Poison if you're expecting your opponent to stay in for 4 or more turns. Since the first turn, they take twice as much damage. The second turn, they take exactly the same. And the third turn, the other one, the Toxic side, takes 6% more damage. But it actually, over 3 turns, is exactly the same. That's where they meet. So if you're expecting the opponent to stay in for 3 turns or fewer, then 1 layer of Toxic Spikes or a regular Poison is actually better than Toxic as far as the amount of damage you can get off. And the real significant part of that is that Porygon 2... yes, it can sit in forever, but 12% plus some damage, any chip damage from anything 3 times puts it in range of +1 Dragapult if it is specially defensive. So I can go for Toxic Spikes once, get the Porygon 2 poisoned, and go for any attack on it at all, and then it'll put it in range of the Dragapult, which 3 subs, as you all know, is sort of a magic number because you don't want to have to make a 4th sub if you can avoid it, because then you can't make any more subs. With leftovers, you can maybe make 5. But anyway, all that to say, that was the math that I did there to make that 1 layer of Toxic Spikes seem valid. Tentacruel is super annoying, obviously, because it is specially defensive, as well as soaks up the Toxic Spikes, but it really doesn't switch into an Nihiligo very well. Meteor Beam with the Power Herb is going to crush the entirety of their roster. The only mon that can take that is Aggron. Grassy Terrain boosted Grass Knot after a Meteor Beam boost kills the Aggron. That's it. So break Sturdy and then kill it with Grass Knot, and then it's gone, and then I don't have to worry about it. And that would bring in the Azelf for something to try to revenge me. And at that point, I can either just stay in and go for the T-Spikes and die, or see if he's going to make a read, or I can just switch this out and bring it back in later. It does really good work here in this matchup. The only mon that having poison coverage would be better against is the Grimmsnarl, and I figured I have other answers to Grimmsnarl, and this really never stays in on it, so I decided not to bother with it, since I really don't want this thing getting paralyzed or anything like that. Next up is the Gardevoir. Gardevoir this week rocking out with Moonblast, Knockoff, Psyshock, and Taunt. Yeah, it's a Kibia Berry set. It catches the Tentacruel by surprise if that thing does decide to switch in on a Moonblast and then outspeeds me because it is weirdly fast. and goes for a Sludge Bomb, then I can Psyshock it and kill it with the Kibia Berry, keeping me alive. If Porygon 2 comes in to try to take a Moonblast, Knockoff or Taunt are super valuable here because getting a Trick Room into the Trevenant is potentially game-ending if I'm not careful, especially later on in the mid-game. So Taunt on that Porygon 2 to stop the Recover, to stop the Trick Room, to stop the Teleport, to stop the Thunder Wave. I mean, that thing has so many utility moves that Taunt is just super useful. And then Knockoff, I don't think he's going to expect it, so I think he's going to think Porygon 2 is pretty safe to come in on the Gardevoir, barring maybe a trick, but if he sees the Kibia Berry or something, maybe he won't expect that, and then I can just knock off the Eviolite and proceed to go from there. This could also bait in the Rotom Heat to resist the Moonblast. Knockoff is amazing on that. Could bring in the Azelf to resist the Psyshock. Knockoff is amazing on that. So I just figured it could bring in the Aggron, and Knockoff's amazing on that. So Knockoff's super good, and I decided to bring in a Gardevoir this week. There was no coverage move that single-handedly did better, except for maybe Focus Blast, which you could argue the 30% chance to miss makes it worse than Knockoff's utility that is guaranteed. So decided to go with that on the Gardevoir this week. I've never run a Knockoff Gardevoir before, so we'll see if it works as well as I'm hoping it will. But yeah. And the last Mon this week is the linchpin of this team. The first time I think it's getting a real chance to be the superstar at all this season is Guts. Obstagoon with a Flame Orb this week. Facade goes nuts, and the only thing immune to Facade is Trevenant, which is weak to the Knockoff, and the only thing that resists Facade is Aggron, which is weak to the Close Combat. And so I didn't need any other coverage, and I decided to put Parting Shot in that last slot because 95 is also a phenomenal speed tier. Yes, this is threatened by Scarflando going for U-turns, Azelf going for U-turns, and a Selgor going for Bug Buzz, the things that can outspeed it potentially. But it can take one hit from a pretty good natural bulk standpoint, from like the Landorus T going for a non-stab U-turn, or the Azelf not going for a banded U-turn or anything like that. So the additional Dark and Normal typings are also great. Immune to Prankster moves from the Grimmsnarl, immune to the Ghost type moves from the Trevenant, immune to the Psychic type moves from the Azelf if those are choiced, which they both could be. So really solid typing and ability to get in this week. Having the flip turn, having the U-turn on other Mons also makes this have even more ability to get in safely and proceed to do damage. It comes in on the Porygon 2 and freely clicks Knockoff. It comes in on the, like, if Landorus T doesn't intimidate it and it's not scarfed, like let's say it's an AV Landorus, Facade can OHKO it. So if I come in after the Intimidate's gone off, I can just OHKO it with Facade. So really solid Mon this week. And you might say these are pretty standard sets, and people were actually telling me these are probably the most standard sets I've run this season. But what's funny is I spent more time trying to figure out the standard sets than I normally do coming up with the ones that use moves that no one's ever heard of. So that's interesting. Anyway, I will see you guys all back here tomorrow with that battle. I hope you guys enjoyed what was actually a longer team builder than usual. And this will be the last battle of the regular season, so hopefully it goes well. Take care, everybody.